Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the Women's Classical Caucus for inviting me today. This is something I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. So here is my PowerPoint, and I'm just going to get it set up. Okay, so I call my presentation the one question your CV should answer, because I'm going to tell you what that question is, but I think it's really important that you realize that one of the things that you should take away from this talk today is that your CV is a summary document and that it reveals your priorities to the search committee. And also, Amy and Erica were kind enough to help me collect some excellent examples of CVs that you'll be able to see later. So that'll be on a Google Drive. So please keep that in mind. So I'm going to talk to you today from the perspective of the search committee and what they see. So there's 4 points to my presentation: the first impression, how to avoid bias, how to design for how search committees learn, and are you qualified for the job? And that's actually the question. And so I want to ask you a question first. If anyone feels like popping into the chat, my question to you would be, anyone want to take a guess at how many seconds a search committee member skims your CV before the first impression sets in? Does anyone want to just take a guess at that, like what that might be? And yes, I'm going to make it full slide view. I'm sorry about that. I'm having a little problem with my computer here. Just a sec. I'm sorry about that. There we go. All right. Perfect. I love these responses. So when I was in graduate school, it was actually a 15-second skim, and now apparently it has gone down to the 10-second skim. So the first impression is you have 10 seconds. And so how do you have to ask yourself, what is the search committee looking for in that first glance, and how do you optimize it? So without question, the job search now is more complex, more labor intensive, and more time consuming for both the department and the candidates, I feel. And that it even was in the recent past. I think that we have to acknowledge that. But in the best case scenario, that extra work is giving you a better shot at getting a job and making the search more fair and equitable, because candidates are no longer being compared to one another, but to a scoring matrix that actually fits the job description, and they are being looked at for the answer to the question, do they possess the relevant experience that the job requires? Not what school they went to or who they're friends with. And I'm going to be talking more about this matrix later on, but this type of work that the search committee puts in and that you put in, to have a CV and a cover letter that actually talk about your target experiences that fit the job description, that does help to eliminate affinity bias, even if it does take more time for us to score candidates and a little more time for you to put that together. So you want your search committee to be able to locate the information it needs easily, because this is a time-consuming process for them without making it harder. And I'm going to come back to this concept about design for how search committees learn a little bit later, but it does apply to the 10-second skim as well. So what is your search committee looking for? And what first impression are you making with these items? So hang on a second. Keep it simple, layout, format, font, no typos. I mean, that's obvious. Divide info into clearly understood sections. And I'm going to talk about that, like the type of sections that I see on CVs sometimes. And then I have some examples of how people are clearly dividing things into clearly understood sections. Make sure the information is relevant, not outdated or unimportant. Your email should be professional. It doesn't have to be your school email. It should be one you check regularly, and it should be a professional sounding one. Please save it as a PDF and first name, last name, resume, not just resume, so your search committee can locate it later on if they need to. These are the kinds of things I think that are really, really important in the very first impression. This is what the search committee just sees right away, and you want them to have a favorable impression. So I would also add to this, please avoid academic jargon. If a search committee sees jargon, they might just make a terrible assumption about you or a snap judgment that you lack common sense or adaptability, and your application won't leave the slush pile. it can be hard sometimes when people talk, for example, about enriching the student's learning experience through the use of effective domains instead of just talking about student learning outcomes. I keep it simple. I guess that would be my advice. So in an ideal world, there would be no bias, but there's always unconscious bias. If a search committee is trained properly and they're doing the job they're supposed to do, they're going to avoid stereotyping people, and they're going to avoid the like me syndrome, where someone on the search committee favors someone that's just like them so that you don't stand a chance of getting taken seriously because that candidate gets pushed to the top. But there are other types of bias that you can help to avoid as well, and I want to talk about those. So as a search committee member, I'm looking for your skills or credentials on the job. What type of job-related experiences do you have? I want to see those things on your CV, but a lot of times, sometimes I'm seeing something else too. So I don't know why people include photos or multiple photos, stage shots of them with students, things like that. That doesn't tell me what I need to know. And your outside activities, and I've seen everything from State Fair Blue Ribbon winner to the kinds of pets people have, are not usually relevant for the job. And there can be exceptions, for example, and I want to talk about an important one. If the job description, for example, talks about public outreach and you have a lot of community engagement experience or public outreach experience that's volunteerism or non-academic related, but still public outreach, that can be very important to put down. But, you know, for the most part, your rock climbing experience is not necessarily going to help you. And what you really don't want is the search committee getting some idea in their head, for example, that you know, you're a rock climber and the job's in Florida and it's a flat state. And, you know, I, as a search committee chair, will step in at that point and say that we're not there to talk about that type of bias. But you want to trying to help avoid your search committee from even going there or having those discussions. So I would say leave that type of personal thing and photos and things off of the CV. But like I said, I do see a lot of people putting these types of things on. I would say think facts, figures, and results when writing your CV. Ask yourself, what value are you adding to your CV? Does your pie baking hobby add value? Think about it. Now, one of the biggest complaints I get from people who are on the market is they say, well, I don't have time to tailor my CV to a million different jobs. And there are so many jobs out there, and I'm looking for jobs at different types of institutions, and I'm looking for jobs outside of academia. And I would turn that question around or turn that idea around and say, what job do you really want to have? And then I would ask you, what are the target experiences or skills? The things you see over and over again that search committees are looking for in the jobs that you are applying for and the jobs you really want. What are these things? Is it grant writing? Is it fundraising? Is it a certain type of class people want taught? Because then all you have to do to look instantly suitable is put those things at the top part of your CV. The top part of your CV is what people pay close attention to. Put your qualifications for those things for these target jobs after your credentials. So here are the two most common mistakes I see people making with the research and teaching category that you see, kind of lumping everything under a generic category and only including websites that are not descriptive or web links that are not descriptive. And I saw this very recently. I anonymized it, but you know, the person had research and teaching, and then they had a domain with their name, and then they had a history of something, and then it had a history of something else. And I would have to click on those web links and dig around a bit to find out exactly what their research and teaching accomplishments were. You don't want to make that work for your search committee. And I'm going to give you some examples of how to avoid this in just a minute or so. Now, on the other side, you can see a person that has a long list of things all grouped together. And they've got some things that have been published. They've got some things that are in progress. They won a grant. They designed a new course. So you want to look completion oriented as a candidate. And these unsorted lists of publications mixed in with things in progress and grants and other achievements all rolled into one, I can tell you that a search committee might unfortunately look at that and right away and think, what are they trying to hide? I can't tell at a glance what you've actually finished. And that sometimes, unfortunately, sets up a negative bias for you. So it's important really to have things organized into clean, crisp categories where you can really see what's going on. And again, it's all about the fact that this has become more time consuming on both sides, and you don't want to make your search committee have to hunt for things. If the situation were reversed and I gave you a link to a website and on it was a podcast, and somewhere within that podcast, say 40 minutes of podcast, was a job description, I mean, you would be thinking too, like, how much time should I be spending on this? We want to hire the best people for jobs as search committee members. If the search committee is doing its job, it's trained in how to properly do that, but it does make things harder sometimes when things aren't sorted out into these clean categories. So here's, for example, is a matrix, and I made it a little more generic than one that was recently used for a job at UF. But again, we're looking as a search committee and we are scoring or writing down in these boxes whether or not the candidate checks all the boxes. And again, this is a good thing because then we're not comparing you to other candidates unfairly. You're just being compared to the job description. But if you can think about the job description and then think about how all those things from the job description, the requirements, are going to go into that matrix, that kind of tells you how you can be scored, right? I mean, that'll tell you what the search committee is looking for. The CV and the job letter play a huge role in this matrix as well. So I called this presentation the one question your CV should answer, because this is the question: are you qualified for the job? So now we're going to look at some examples of people who have organized their information in a way that I can see, are they qualified for the job fairly easily? So we're going to look at Sarah and we're going to look at Julian. So they both gave me permission to show you excerpts from their CVs. Sarah is a recent PhD, 2016, in classics, and she has held a job in the medical humanities for the past few years at One UF Health, which is located at my university's hospital. Now, what I like about Sarah's CV is that I can locate the information I need as a reader quickly. Julian got his PhD a while ago, but what I like about his CV is that he's really highly descriptive without overburdening the reader. He's very, very good at providing you with a very good summary of that web link or a very good summary of that podcast so that I can locate the information I need very quickly. So I'm going to give you some examples from his CV as well. So here's an example of Sarah's presentation of information. Within service, there are subcategories. So if the job is asking for public outreach, for example, I can locate that quickly. And this is, a very nice arrangement as well. The font is clear and there's bullet points and it's descriptive, but not too descriptive. And again, nice subheadings so that I can see right away, what she's achieved. Now, Julian is a very interesting case, and I wanted to include him as an example because he's very interdisciplinary. He got his PhD in history, but you'll notice that he's working as a professor of English. You'll also notice that he is the curator of history at the MSU Museum, so he's at Michigan State University, and he wears a lot of different hats at Michigan State. And this is a lot to unpack for someone coming out of a PhD in history who worked as a history professor for many years and then made that transition to an English department. But here's how he did it. He put a bio in his CV to explain what he does. And I think that bio contains some really important keywords. And I'm just going to give you a minute to take a look at it and read it and just see maybe what jumps out at you a bit. And, if you want to put in the comments, like things you think that jump out at you that might have helped him transition from history to English, I mean, that would be great too. If there's things that you think of that you see, like what might have helped him make that transition to explaining to a search committee how interdisciplinary he is. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he can do digital humanities, the fact that he's an interdisciplinary scholar. Also, I think, too, something that strikes me is when he talks about his work explores the real and imaginary city and then explains that it's urban development culture. I think search committees could see how that can be in multiple disciplines. I mean, he was very careful, I think, to include words that aren't linked to just to one discipline in particular, or the search committee would have a bias about being linked to one discipline, in particular. And one thing I want to just pause for a minute and mention is usually when I'm on a search committee, like the last 2 search committees I was on, it was a graduate student, 2 lecturers, myself, and a staff member. And we all had very, very different perspectives on what made a CV, a strong CV. We had different perspectives on what made a good candidate. We did come to fantastic agreement and got 2 fantastic candidates for the 2 jobs that we were looking for. But, you know, I'm just giving you, I want you to keep in mind, I'm just giving you my perspective as someone who's had a lot of experience on search committees and a chair. And, you know, you may not agree with everything I have to say, but keep in mind that, you know, sometimes I'm just trying to explain like how you can avoid a bias or something, or how you can really present the information in a way that, you know, people could really get the information quickly. And thank you. Yeah, he does give a framework in which to interpret the rest of his CV. Bingo. That's exactly right. That he's doing that. He's really good at that. And, you know, he demonstrates how his work connects. Yeah, thank you. These are great, great comments. I really appreciate that. Okay, oops, I want to go back. There we go. So the other thing that he does is here with his digital publications, he has these really good descriptions, you know, about how he reframes digital humanities. And what I like too is, you know, he says he brings together a diverse group of digital humanities practitioners to reflect on theory and practice. So you can kind of tell what this is, who the audience might be, you know, what he's trying to accomplish right away. And then with digital literacy and collaborative learning lesson book, now I see, okay, this is a pedagogical tool that he's developed. And, you know, this is how he did it. There was a 2-day planning workshop. He really is someone who in the humanities is extremely creative about what the humanities is, what it can do, and he sells it very well on his CV, very, very well. And then finally, again, you know, explaining, you know, what your project accomplishes, and, you know, explaining here, instead of just listing, you know, like a website that says every tongue got to confess and no explanation at all, he's got the explanation of what it is, where it was produced, what it's for, to explore issues linked to communities of color in the United States, or the Florida Constitution Project. Again, just a 2-sentence blurb makes such a difference, rather than making your search committee click and go through the rabbit hole trying to find out where your information is and how it relates to the job. So this is, you know, this sort of explanation is, it's brief, to the point, you know, clear keywords, and I know exactly who the audience is, and I know exactly what purpose it serves. And here, what I like about this is with his public scholarship, having a description of your publication instead of just including the web link. The first web link, for example, I wouldn't necessarily know what that was until I clicked on it. So it's so helpful to have this citation before the web link instead of just the web link. And, you know, this makes such a difference. You know, at a glance, again, I can find the information I need. So this is a good question too. Should all CVs have a bio section, or is it just in special cases like this? And, you know, I think that the bio section, yeah, would go in most cases in the letter, absolutely. The interesting thing with Julian is he himself has admitted that he likes to have this description because he likes people just to sort of, again, in that 10-second scan, get exactly who he is and what he does. So, you know, and he says himself, and, you know, when I've talked to him about this, it's because he bridges so many different things: museum studies, digital humanities, history, English, comic studies, all these different things that people often don't know how to categorize them. And he doesn't want to lose control of that narrative. He wants to immediately have control of that narrative in that 10-second glance. So that's just his personal choice. But like I said, I mean, it's a creative one for someone who wants to be more interdisciplinary, or, you know, wants to, you know, show, you know, different keywords right away. Okay. So I'm just about out of time. So thank you, and I'm happy to take questions. And I'm going to stop sharing now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm glad that we got the slight counterpoint to your pets aren't relevant to your job experience. Sometimes if the pet's really cute, they might be. Okay, so I'm grabbing these questions. We're going to have a whole big question session at the end, so I'm making sure I keep an eye on those. But Ted, I want to throw to you, sorry, THM, I want to throw to you very quickly. And if there's stuff that you would like to supplement here, and then, you know, obviously we'll have more time later as well.
Yeah, sure. So something that you might see in the sample CVs is that some people will have two different versions of their CV. And I think that Jennifer was getting at this by thinking even you can, in some instances, think more specifically about each ad having a different CV to front load the information that's really responsive to the specific job. But I would say, so I'd say definitely thinking in terms of having a different one for SLACs versus research focused universities, so that for the, this is not always the case, but often small liberal arts colleges and medium liberal arts colleges like Wake Forest will be looking for, in their hire, looking more for what teaching coverage you will be providing rather than research coverage. And so my department in our most recent searches have decided we don't mind having overlap on our faculty research wise. That's not a thing that matters. What matters is that the hire will be able to teach the courses we need them to teach. And so to that effect, it's more useful to us when a CV lists the teaching section up top, so that you have, you know, your employment and education, and then following that you go right into teaching, and the publications are lower. And some places will be looking more with greater scrutiny at publication records. But having that as the first thing for teaching focused jobs, whether at public institutions or at small liberal arts colleges, I think could be really useful. And then the other thing is the CV is, and another thing that the CV does is it shows that you know how academia works, and that you are going to, if you're going to be a good academic, that if it's a tenure line job, that you're going to get tenure. And so the CV is, in addition to having, you know, needing to have clarity, the CV is where you demonstrate, okay, I realize that articles are the currency of the field, so I've published an article or two or short note or something like that. If you haven't done that, that's okay. The way you do that is then by showing that you've done conference presentations and making those really clear and not cluttered. I think is an important way to give confidence to the committee that you're gonna be the kind of member of the profession that departments are looking to hire.
Ted, can I ask you a quick softball question, just so you can address some very bad advice I was given by someone earlier in my career? Small liberal arts colleges don't care about research, so you should just put your teaching up front. And you don't really do research at a small liberal arts college anyway. All they care about is teaching.
Yeah, so this might get into the cover letter territory somewhere. So a lot of smaller liberal arts colleges will have some version of what Wake Forest has, this sort of ideology of the teacher scholar, and teacher does come first, but scholar is hyphenated in there. And so you want to be able to present yourself as the whole package, someone who will publish even if you're teaching a lot, or even as the focus is more on teaching. And so I think a key way you can do this is front load the teaching, but show how your research supports your teaching, and how your teaching gives you the energy and excitement for research. That kind of cross-pollination is something that small liberal arts colleges really do care about. And smaller, search committees are aware that, you know, most people who are applying, who are finishing their PhD or have recently gotten their PhD, are coming from a really intellectually robust research one climate. And so we're aware that you're going to want to have that. That's going to be something that you want, that's the headspace you've been in. That's possibly why you decided to go into graduate school and why you decided to stick with graduate school. And so showing that you can get some of that fulfillment through teaching and through directing undergraduate research, that sort of thing, is crucial. That it shows that you're going to remain intellectually active and engaged. So I think that answered your question. Front load the teaching, but don't abandon it.